before the world knew the pyramids of Egypt, before Mali rose under Mansa Musa, before Europe even dreamed of kings and crowns, there was Ghana, not the Ghana you see on today's map, but an ancient empire that ruled the Sahara, where gold was so abundant that even the dust shimmered in sunlight. This was a land where the earth itself seemed alive, breathing wealth, radiating power, and giving birth to the first great West African civilization. It was called Wagadou, and from its heart rose a people who would shape Africa's destiny long before foreign maps and foreign gods arrived. In the vast Sahel, between the Sahara Desert and the green forests of the south, a civilization began to rise around the 4th century CE. This was not a random kingdom, it was a response to geography. To the north lay the Sahara, harsh, unforgiving, but full of trade routes. To the south, forests rich in gold and kola nuts. In between fertile plains and rivers that connected worlds, the Soninke people saw opportunity. They built settlements along the Niger River basin, uniting villages under powerful clans. Through alliances and wisdom, they founded Wagadou, the heartland of what Arabs later called Ghana, the land of gold. But Ghana wasn't the name of the land, it was the title of its ruler, a word that meant war chief or king of kings. And indeed, this king ruled over kings. At the empire's height, the capital Kumbi Saleh was a marvel of its age. Arab historians like al-Bakri wrote of it with awe, two cities side by side, one for the royal court, and one for Muslim traders and scholars from across North Africa. Imagine it. Wide streets filled with merchants speaking in Arabic, Berber, and Soninke, camels loaded with gold, dust, and salt, mosques standing beside shrines dedicated to ancient African spirits. The king's palace was said to gleam with gold, and his audience hall was surrounded by dogs wearing golden collars. This was not myth, it was power made visible. The true power of Ghana lay in its control of trade. West Africa's goldfields, Bambouk, Bure, and Galam, were the richest in the known world. But the gold didn't just appear in markets. It flowed north through caravans that crossed the Sahara, to cities like Sijil Massa and Timbuktu, and from there, into North Africa and the Mediterranean. Every grain of gold dust was taxed by Ghana's king. For every donkey load of salt that entered his borders, a tax. For every load of gold that left, another tax. And so, the kingdom became wealthy beyond imagination. Arab chroniclers wrote, "The king of Ghana is the wealthiest ruler on the face of the earth." The Ghana king was not just a political leader, he was divine authority. He ruled from a golden throne, clothed in fine cotton and silk from distant lands. His court was surrounded by ministers, judges, and generals, a structured government centuries before Europe's Renaissance. He led armies of 200,000 warriors, including 40,000 archers, and his word was law. When he appeared in public, people prostrated themselves, clapping dust from their hands in reverence, for he was believed to be chosen by the gods to maintain balance between worlds. This wasn't tyranny, it was spiritual kingship, an ancient African concept that power came not only from might, but from harmony with ancestors, land, and destiny. Two things built Ghana's greatness: gold and salt. Gold was life, but salt was survival. In a land of heat and sweat, salt preserved food, maintained health, and became just as valuable as gold. From the north, Berber traders brought massive blocks of Saharan salt. From the south, Soninke miners brought dusts of gold. At the borders, they met, and the silent barter began. Traders would place gold dust on the ground and step away. Berbers would arrive, place salt beside it, and withdraw. If the offer was fair, the deal was sealed without a single word. Trust and respect built an economy across thousands of miles. This was Africa's genius: commerce through honor, not conquest. Caravans crossed the Sahara, hundreds of camels, loaded with goods. From Ghana came gold, ivory, slaves, and kola nuts. From the north came salt, copper, textiles, and horses. The desert was not a barrier, it was a bridge. Ghana became the beating heart of an African trade network that connected West Africa to the Middle East, India, and even China. This was globalization before Columbus. Through trade came not just goods, but ideas, technologies, and beliefs. The drums of Ghana carried the rhythm of civilization itself. By the 8th century, Islam had begun to spread across the Sahara. Arab and Berber merchants brought not only goods but faith. They built mosques, introduced Arabic writing, and opened doors to learning and literacy. Yet Ghana's kings did not convert immediately. They respected Islam, but held on to their ancestral religion. Their priests, diviners, and spirit keepers remained powerful. They believed that abandoning their gods would break the kingdom's balance. So, Ghana became a place where two worlds coexisted, African spirituality and Islamic scholarship, side by side, without conflict. It was a harmony rarely seen in world history. In the grand story of ancient Ghana, or Wagadou, as it was truly known, power didn't flow only through kings and warriors. Behind every ruler stood the wisdom of women, who shaped the empire's destiny in ways history rarely records. Among the Soninke people, lineage was sacred, and it flowed through the mother's blood. Royal succession often passed, not from father to son, but from a king to his sister's son. It was the women who carried royal legitimacy, the keepers of the bloodline. They were more than mothers and wives. They were priestesses guarding the spiritual balance, traders linking markets across the Sahel, and sometimes regents who ruled when kings fell. Their influence echoed in legends like that of Queen Yet, the warrior princess of nearby regions, who defied the limits placed on her gender riding into battle. Symbolizing courage, freedom, and leadership, her story reflects the spirit of women in the age of Ghana, powerful, fearless, and essential to the survival of the realm. In the Empire of Gold, women were not hidden behind walls. They were the silent architects of empire, shaping generations, preserving lineages, and ensuring that the light of Ghana never dimmed. In the heart of ancient Ghana stood not just a throne of gold, but a court of justice that defined the empire's moral strength. Here, justice wasn't a written code, carved on stone or paper. It was a living principle, carried in memory and tradition. When disputes arose, whether over trade, land, or personal honor, the people gathered in open court, beneath the sun, before elders, priests, and royal judges. The king himself, the Ghana, often watched in silence, his presence, a reminder that justice came from the divine order of the ancestors. The judges did not consult scrolls or decrees. Instead, they sought truth, balance, and communal harmony, the spiritual foundations of law. In Africa, oaths were sacred. A man swearing his innocence might hold a piece of sacred iron or invoke the ancestors' names, knowing that a false oath could bring sickness, misfortune, or death. In this system, morality was law, and justice was intertwined with faith. Travelers from North Africa and beyond marveled at Ghana's peace. They observed how theft and crime were rare, not because of harsh punishment, but because people feared dishonoring their lineage and their spirits. This was Africa's first organized legal system, built not on fear or written codes, but on respect, spiritual accountability, and the belief that true justice restores harmony, not vengeance. Every empire, no matter how golden, eventually faces its twilight. For centuries, Ghana had stood as the beating heart of West Africa, rich in gold, order, and wisdom. But wealth is a double-edged sword. It attracts not only trade, but envy. By the 11th century, far to the north, in the deserts of Morocco, a new power was rising. The Almoravids, a militant Islamic movement born among the Berbers. They were not just warriors. They were religious reformers, determined to purify Islam and expand their faith across the Sahara. To them, Ghana, with its immense riches and pagan kings, represented both a prize and a divine mission. The Almoravid armies crossed the Sahara with fire and faith. Caravans that once carried salt and gold now carried swords and banners. They swept into the Sahel, conquering oasis towns, converting rulers, and redrawing the balance of power in West Africa. In 1076 CE, their forces struck at Kumbi Saleh, the royal capital of Ghana. The city, famed for its twin towns, one for traders, one for royalty, faced siege and destruction. Though the Ghanaian spirit endured, the empire's strength began to crack. Its trade networks, once the veins of gold and life, slowly bled out as routes shifted to new centers under Almoravid influence. The markets fell silent. The caravans turned north, and the drums of prosperity that once echoed across the savannah began to fade into memory. The fall of Ghana was not a sudden collapse, but a gradual eclipse, a golden sunsetting, making way for the rise of new empires like Mali that would soon inherit its legacy. The Almoravid invasion fractured Ghana's unity. Vassal states broke away, trade centers declined, droughts and famines struck the Sahel, forcing migrations and weakening the kingdom's core. The once mighty King of Kings now found himself surrounded by rivals and rebels by the 13th century. Ghana's glory had dimmed, its gold fields under new rulers, and from its ashes rose a new power, Mali. But Ghana's fall was not failure. It was the seed of rebirth, for without Ghana, there would be no Mali, no Songhai. West African legacy. Every empire that followed, Mali, Songhai, Kanem-Bornu owed its foundations to Ghana, its trade systems, its political structures. Its belief in balance became the blueprint for African governance. Ghana proved that Africans could build empires based not on colonization, but collaboration and commerce. When Mansa Musa later dazzled the world with his gold, he was walking a road paved centuries earlier by Ghana's kings. Ghana was the architect of Africa's golden age. When the world speaks of ancient Ghana, it often remembers its gold. But beneath that glitter lay something even more valuable: knowledge. The empire was not just a marketplace of wealth. It was a laboratory of innovation, where science, craft, and intellect thrived long before the rise of Europe's universities. In the workshops of Ghana, blacksmiths stood as the silent scientists of their time, with blazing furnaces and secret techniques. They forged iron tools and weapons of remarkable quality, stronger, sharper, and more balanced than those found in many parts of the world. Their craft wasn't just metallurgy, it was chemistry, engineering, and art combined. The traders of Wagadou mastered systems that mirrored modern economics. They developed methods of credit, pricing, and long-distance coordination, turning desert caravans into the arteries of a global network that connected Africa to the Mediterranean and beyond. And above them all, under the vast African sky, stood the astrologers and priests, men and women, who read the stars, not for superstition, but for science. They used celestial patterns to guide agriculture, mark seasons, and plan ceremonies, a mastery of timekeeping, an observation that shaped the rhythm of life across the Sahel. Even the Sonic calendar, their harvest cycles, and the geometric harmony in their architecture reflect a deep understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and environmental balance. Archaeologists near Kumbi Saleh have found stone foundations, drainage systems, and symmetrical layouts, clear signs of urban planning and architectural precision. This evidence shatters the colonial myth that Africa's intellect was imported, because the truth is simple. Africa's genius was not borrowed from outsiders. It was born from its own soil, nurtured by centuries of observation, adaptation, and innovation beneath the Sahel's sun. Even after the empire vanished, the spirit of Wagadou lived on in oral traditions. Griots, the storytellers, carried Ghana's history in their voices for over 1,000 years. They sang of kings like Kaya Majin and Tunka Manin, of trade, wealth, and divine order. To this day, among the Cynic people of Mali, Mauritania, and Senegal, songs of Wagadou are still told by firelight. Empires die, but memory is immortal. The Kingdom of Ghana was not just Africa's first empire, it was humanity's first lesson in balance. Between wealth and wisdom, between trade and tradition, between gods and men. Long before the West learned to build nations, Africa had already written the blueprint. Today, when we speak of civilization, we must remember where gold first gleamed, where justice first ruled, and where humanity learned the art of harmony. Ghana, the empire of gold, was not a lost kingdom. It was the beginning of Africa's greatness, and its echoes still shine in every grain of sand, in every drop of gold, and in the heartbeat of a continent that refuses to be forgotten.